Ravings from the grave and salutation all you boils and ghouls. Dr. Redfield here, and I'm going to talk to you about my favorite horror anthology ever. No, not that one. I'm talking about the one, the only, Tales from the Crypt. Or as I like to call it, why the fuck can't I watch this show on HBO? As a young lover of horror growing up in the 90s, it was very difficult to miss Tales from the Crypt and all of its blood, gore, and sex. Yes, it was the 90s and there was lots of sex.
A lot of sex. Most episodes were based on stories from old EC comics such as The Vault of Horror and The Haunt of Fear. Tales from the Crypt was a syndicated horror series on the HBO network from 1989 to 1996.
Plus, the show had one of the most entertaining hosts ever. He was the mother goose of the noose, the son of a gun who was skeletons of fun. He was the Crypt Keeper. So, before any blisters fester any further, let's talk about 10 facts from Tales from the Crypt that'll rot your brain.
Number 10. The perfect intro.
If one was to make a show about a ghoulish host who would share stories in an old crypt and mausoleum, what would it look like and where would it take place? Creepy cemetery gate? Check. A big mansion? Check. Cobwebs everywhere? Check. A creepy, never-ending spiral stairwell? Double check. Unfortunately, this is not an actual location, but a miniature set built by Boss Film Studios. The actual size of the house is about 5 foot wide and 6 foot tall, and is made out of wood, foam core, resin, and metal. They use tiny little snorkel cameras to capture all the interior shots.
All except for the stairwell. That was done with 90s CGI.
They had computers in the 90s that could do that? It doesn't matter. I still get goosebumps every time I watch this opening. I'm sorry. I'm still not over how much I just love the intro for this show. It's simple and melodic, all while being a little cheerful and haunting at the same time. It was the perfect use of the E-flat minor mode, and it was all created by the legendary decomposer Danny Elfman. Mr. Elfman would later go on to do all the music for The Nightmare Before Christmas. This included singing all the Jack Skellington parts. That's right, technically, Jack Skellington wrote the theme song for the show. This is such a weird connection, and I kind of hate how much Danny Elfman's name shows up in everything. But I've got to give credit where credit is due.
You must stop now, Doc. Number 8. The Roger Rabbit connection.
At the end of the auditions for the Crypt Keeper's voice, John Cassier was given the role. And he did so well, he was almost given this role immediately. But there was one other contender for this voice. Charles Fleischer. He's the man who voiced the title character in the 1988 hit movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And let's take this specific Tales from the Crypt brain-rotting piece of information just one step further. The voice of Roger Rabbit would later go on to co-star in the first Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight, as Wally, the postal tenant who had a soft spot for the wrong type of women. Demon women!
Number 7. Alternate versions.
This show was wacky, terrifying, and brutal. Perfect for children, but for syndicated television, they actually had to film 2 different episodes. One version was shot for all the violence, nudity, and strong language, and the stuff that made the show a great success. And then they would shoot the same scene again in a more TV-friendly manner for networks that were not HBO.
This would come at a great financial cost to the production.
Indeed, and that's why I find it funny that for all the syndicated episodes, the ones that were edited down, they took out the language and nudity, but left in all the violence. Which version do you think was my favorite?
The one with the language and nudity?
Fucking A!
Number 6. The Eyes of a Child's Play.
This show was well before any major advancements in CGI, so the host of this show actually had to be done via puppet. It took 6 puppeteers to manipulate this gaunt, grotesque, and wild-eyed host. The reason the Crypt Keeper's eyes look so familiar is that they were literally the same exact eyes that Chucky the Good Guy doll had from the Child's Play movie. The designs were done by Kevin Yeager and N. Brock Winkless IV, who recently worked on Child's Play. So I imagine they just had them lying around in a drawer one day and were like, well, I bet these eyes work great for one horror icon, why not use them for another? And the rest is history. Hey, Andy, the Crypt Keeper, has his eye on you.
Who is Andy?
You have got to watch some more movies.
Number 5. The first episode and first movie.
This is a really fun fact right here. The first Tales from the Crypt episode, The Man Who Was Death, and the first full-length feature film, Demon Knight, both starred the same actor, William Sadler. Whether this was planned or if this was just a creepy coincidence, Mr. Sadler has had a way of creating memorable characters that you could both love and fear, hate and laugh with. He was Death and the Demon Knight. Additionally, he was the Grim Reaper in the episode The Assassin, and he was the mummy that was actually in Tales from the Crypt Part 2.
Number 4. Vampire sex worker.
So after the success of the movie Demon Knight, they knew right away that they wanted to make a sequel, and they wanted it to be about vampires and strippers. They had a script. They had a director, everything was in motion, but the director they had felt that the story was so good that they did not need the backing of the Tales from the Crypt franchise. The director was Robert Rodriguez, and the movie was From Dusk Till Dawn. It was a cultural and financial success, but that left the Crypt Keeper with no naked vampires. After lots of searching and lots of editing, we were given Bordello of Blood with Dennis Miller and Chris Sarandon from that 80s vampire hit Fright Night. The movie also had Corey Feldman in it, so there you go.
Number 3. The trilogy that should have been.
So just like the second movie, the third film that was planned was scripted and had a director picked out, but then they felt that it was strong enough to stand on its own. That movie was Michael J. Fox's underappreciated classic film, The Frighteners. That was supposed to be this next film. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Wasn't there supposed to be another possible third movie?
Why, yes, there was. I've actually heard that the movie Death Becomes Her is kind of considered one long episode, as it had all the same people from behind the scenes and producers working on the film. I absolutely love that movie.
Number 2. The Crypt Keeper in other forms.
At the height of the show's popularity, the Crypt Keeper was everywhere. Not only was he on HBO, but he also had his own game show.
Was it any good?
No, it wasn't. But there was also an animated cartoon show that was on Saturday mornings for the kiddies called Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Was that any good?
No, it was a very PG, watered-down version of the series where literally nobody died the entire time.
Number 1. The show is lost in Limbo.
And now for the number 1 fact of the show, why the fuck can't I watch this on HBO?
It appears to be held up for legal reasons.
I don't care. Tales from the Crypt was created and produced by HBO, but for some weird legal bullshit reason, you can't find the shows anywhere to stream. And hopefully this will be resolved in the future, because there is an entire generation of people who have not been punned to death by creepy tales of terror, and it shows. Do better, HBO. So no, not every episode in the series was a beautiful, deadly cadaver. I will never forget all of the horrible jokes and 90s nudity. This show was a inspiration for so many. John Kazir, your voice has terrified and delighted me for years, and I greatly applaud you. And with that, everyone, I would like to end this by saying, until next time, boils and ghouls, pleasant screams!
That's not how we end the show.
Fine. This has been Dr. Redfield telling you to play and slay. Play until dead. Oh, I almost forgot. He had a rap album. The
No,
Crypt Keeper's
we're done.
in the
I'm shutting
house
this down.
with the effects like a guillotine.